ORT webinar for 2020. We've had quite a good run, and very excited to end off on this high note. Just wanted to welcome firstly Pippa Ehrlich, who's the director of the award-winning and much talked about Netflix documentary, My Octopus Teacher. Thank you, Pippa, for making time for us and for ORT this morning. I know that you've been really, with all your awards and appearances and PR that you've had, you really are being pulled in a million directions. So we really do appreciate you making the time. Another big welcome to Ronnie Apteker, who is joining us this morning from Kiev, where he's living at the moment. So Ronnie is a very accomplished filmmaker and producer, and he's also still is a strong entrepreneurial force in South Africa. So Ronnie, welcome. Thank you for your time.
That's a pleasure, thanks.
So just a little bit of admin, if everyone can please keep themselves on mute. If you have any questions, post them in the chat box and we will address them at the end. And yeah, just what we've all been waiting for. So over to you guys.
Thank you, Brenda.
Pippa, should I jump in with the first question?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I wrote, like I said, we prepared a bunch of questions, but I got so many more. But maybe we'll start with that first one. Like, how long did it take to make the film from the very start to when we all saw it on Netflix?
So, I mean, that's a loaded question, because you could say that it started 53 years ago in Backwoven, where Craig was born, because this really is, it's kind of the story of his life's work and his life's journey. So he grew up there as a very small boy. He was diving since he was 3 years old, in the water from a few days old, and spent hours and hours running around in the intertidal by himself. And that kind of set something up in his psyche that he returned to almost 40 years later. But in terms of the actual filmmaking process, so Craig burnt himself out, lost his passion for filmmaking after being actually a very successful natural history filmmaker, and decided he never wanted to do it again, as you see in the film. And then moved out to Simonstown and slowly but surely just started healing himself by, in a kind of very gentle way, swimming every day. And through the swimming, he started looking around and seeing all of these incredible animals that were in the kelp forest, and he started filming them. And in that process, he met this octopus. And so the year of the octopus was, that was a year-long process, but it took him about 5 years of getting used to that environment and getting used to filming in that environment before he was able to capture a story like that. And then it was probably about a year after she died, or 6 months after she died, that he said to me, I'm going to make this film, and I've got a very clear idea of what the story is, and it's about this incredible experience I had with this animal, and would you like to be part of it? So him and I then started editing, and it wasn't an easy, I kind of read the treatment, and I had a really nice cushy job where I was well paid and flying all over the world. But I read this treatment and it just struck me. I actually started crying at my desk, and then I knew that it was something that I had to do. So quit my job. We had no funding. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know where we'd end up. And for the next year, I got a stipend from the Sea Change Project, which is the incredible organization that I work with. And for the next year, Craig and I just worked absolutely nonstop, sometimes 18 hours a day, in his studio, in the roof of his house. And we just edited and edited and edited and shot and recut the film and cut probably 20 sequences that haven't made it into the final product. And then we took that rough cut to a company called Off the Fence Productions, which are a big international distributor of wildlife films. And they took it on and they started working with us. And then I think it was about another 6 months before we got to the point where we realized we needed to bring an outsider on, because Craig and I were too close to the subject. So then we went into a new phase with an international director called James Reed. He came out and did an interview. So, and we worked on it together in Bristol, which is the epicenter of natural history filmmaking. And only at that point did Netflix come on board. And eventually we delivered, well, we finished the film in December last year, but I think we only finished delivering because of COVID in about May this year. So from starting to work on it to delivery was at least 3 years. And that doesn't count all the time that Craig put in before we started. So it really is a labor of love and a leap of faith.
Yeah. I think I even used those words somewhere in the emails we had about the labor of love.
Yeah.
But it struck me. I mean, and I didn't think it was a quick project at all. I mean, these things never are. I mean, you know, we've had film projects. Some of them are years, you know, in the making, and it's always a struggle. I mean, I take it there were many struggles along the way.
There were many struggles, and at the beginning of a project, you've got a lot of energy, and you're inspired, and you are kind of full of hope. But as you start throwing yourself into it, you start running out of internal resources, you start running out of material resources, and what I really learned from this process is you better believe in your story. You better have it better have a big, deep place in your heart, because if you lose interest halfway through, if your passion dies, you will never be able to finish.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you also have to believe in yourself, because sometimes you start questioning yourself as well. I've had many moments where you look in the mirror and go, "Geez, I'm stupid."
Yeah, I did that a lot.
I've done that to myself. You torture yourself. It's a lonely journey, even though there's a team. Like at the end of the day, you carry that weight on your own, you know. And I've had moments where my mom says, "I don't know who you are. You're not my kid," you know, because that work is not great.
No, it's that when you're putting your creative soul out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You feel insecure a lot of the time, and I must say.
But you delivered. I mean, it's a magical piece of work. I mean.
Yeah, I had a huge team that helped me deliver.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
I worked really hard, and I carried a lot of it, but. Yeah. The Sea Change project, I know Karina's on this call somewhere. They were behind me all the time, and then this incredible privilege.
Well, that was
other very well established, very confident, calm filmmakers coming on in different parts of the process and helping to carry it through, as well as an incredible EP at Netflix.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the questions that we remember we discussed. I mean, I said films are made by teams, and did you have a dream team?
Oh, such a dream team. Like, honestly, you could not have asked for more of a dream team. You know, there's always a little bit of conflict. And actually, there was a bit of tension between James, my co-director, and I, but I think that's a very good thing. And he and I, you know, really good friends and a very good team now. But certainly when we brought the film to him, it was quite far in one direction, and made by people who were deeply immersed in the story. So he had to pull it more into the middle so that it was accessible to an audience that didn't have as much information as we had. And that was really important. And he's just got this incredible slick style. And he did the interview with Craig, which I could never have done, because you can't, you know, an interview has to feel like someone's telling the story for the very first time. So you can't do it with someone who you know well. And it helps to have people who are confident and calm to kind of hold you through certain points in the project. Later on, kind of, James moved on to other projects, and then Netflix brought on someone called Jinx Godfrey, who's phenomenal editor. I've never worked with someone like this. It was really life-changing to work with her, and she never even came to South Africa. We did everything over the phone. She watched various cuts, and then we just sat on the phone on WhatsApp and talked through things. And you're working with someone who has honed her craft to such a degree that she can listen to something and say, you know, you need to pull 6 frames off the audio effect at 10 minutes and 16 seconds.
Oh, quite intense.
No, she's but amazing, and she's won her films have won numerous Academy Awards. But you feel safe when you're working with someone like that. And
I don't know the artist, but she has an unusual name.
Yeah, it's Jessica.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know if have you seen Man on Wire or Chernobyl or The Theory of Everything?
I've seen Chernobyl.
Yeah, okay, so she edited
I'm 100 kilometers from Chernobyl, just by the way.
Wow, that's a scary place.
Could drive
go
there.
look at it.
No, I don't want to go. But you get different reactions here about, are you going to Chernobyl? That series, I mean, it was brilliant. It created a tourist boom in Chernobyl, which media, has that effect. It actually wasn't in our discussions, in terms of questions and answers, but I imagine your film also has had that same effect, that people want to come to South Africa and actually swim in the kelp forests, which is just a fantastic, aspect of filmmaking. It doesn't happen often that films have that influence and that persuasion, but there are probably 20, 30 examples, in the last 50 years, whether it's like the Lord of the Rings in New Zealand, or you're a surfer as well, I take it.
More of a diver.
Oh,
I body surfer now.
So there was a film made before all of us were born called The Endless Summer. I think
Yes.
Brian Brown,
Yes, of course.
and that created, it was made like, long before I discovered filmmaking. But I've got a mentor, Paul, who used to tell me about it, and he said that the tourism that created, like to Jeffreys Bay, and films have that ability.
Capes
and I
and
imagine,
Francis, yeah.
Capes and France, and I imagine the Octopus film has. Unfortunately, the corona is a bit of but when the corona finally calms down, I imagine that your film will have a big influence on tourism, and the country owes you a great gratitude for that. It might not have been by design; it could have been just a fantastic after effect. But films do that.
Certainly, we didn't make this film just to make a nice story. I mean, we made it. Yeah. It's a project of the Sea Change Project, which is dedicated to the great African seaflowers. And the reason the film is powerful is because it's made by all these people who spend almost every day of their lives underwater in this place that they love. And I think it's that feeling that's filtered into the story. And that's what people are responding to when we have these strong emotional, we get these like incredibly emotional emails from people, and it blows our mind. But that's the funny thing about filmmaking. I talked about the sequences that we pulled out of the film, and there were some kind of more spiritual things that we put in that we needed to pull out but it was like the feeling of them and the essence of them is still alive in the story somehow. And I can't really explain that. It's like magic.
Well, the film has got magic in it. I mean, it's not just the filmmaking, even the music was fantastic. I mean, it just worked on every level. And I've seen it 3 times now, and it's a magical piece of film. But one of the fantastic effects of the film, or I don't know what the word is, the results, is that it will inspire people to come to Cape Town and to dive, which is great for the country. So I'm very chuffed about what you guys have achieved there. And
we're hoping it's great for the kelp forest. We really want our government and our city to see great value in this space, and value in keeping it wild and protecting it as a wild space, because kelp forests all over the world are under enormous threat. Nature all over the world is under enormous threat.
Absolutely.
If people don't value it and aren't invested in it, and it's a terrible thing to say, but it kind of has to have some kind of job creation value as well. So I hope it does bring a lot of tourism to South Africa. And I also hope that all of the operators in Cape Town, and it might be something that we have to get involved with as Sea Change, I hope that they are very responsible in terms of how they handle that.
Right. Yeah, but I see a question popped up on the screen, and I think it's one of the questions that everybody is asking: where is that particular kelp forest?
It's all over. A lot of our work is done in Simonstown, but this kelp forest stretches from De Hoop in the east all the way up the Namibian coast in the west. And every piece of it is magical.
Yeah, so I was born in Cape Town, and I used to dive, snorkel, not like we used to catch crayfish illegally back in the day when I was a teenager in Oudekraal.
Yes.
I mean, I think there's a hotel there somewhere now that built many years ago, if I remember
12
correctly.
Apostles.
So, yeah, so is part of the, because I remember kelp forest being around there as well.
No, it's exquisite kelp forest.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
one of the
So,
most beautiful places
but
to
you
dive.
didn't film there
Cape
in
Town.
Oudekraal area.
We dive there all the time.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I don't think. I mean, the octopus didn't live there. The octopus lives in False Bay.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Lived in False Bay, but
yeah.
it's. I'll just give you a quick explanation of kelp forest ecology in South Africa. So, although Cape Point is not where the two oceans meet, that's a kind of myth. It is quite an important space because you have a very different ecosystem on the Atlantic side of Cape Point versus what you have in False Bay. So good diving in False Bay is in winter. The northwesterlies make the ocean cold and clean, but in summer it switches the other way. So the southeaster makes Oudekraal very cold and very clean. And sometimes you have 30, 40 meter viz on the Oudekraal side. So it's beautiful, and the kelp forest
I remember that.
Is vast.
Yeah,
and lots of crayfish. And you really get this feeling of being in a massive underwater jungle on that side.
Yeah, I do remember that.
False Bay is kind of denser kelp forest and shorter, and in some cases older because it's more, it's calmer, so it's more established, and you have much greater biodiversity than you have on the Atlantic side.
Okay. From a filmmaking point of view, how many hours of footage did you shoot like underwater?
It's hard to answer that because I was working with Craig's entire life.
You're right.
And I can tell you we have thousands and thousands.
So the editor Jinx must have had, and I imagine there was more than just Jinx editing.
No, so Jinx was just the consultant.
So I see. Okay.
I edited a version, and then we worked with a brilliant editor in Bristol called Dan Schwalm, and he edited another version. And then Jinx helped us tighten that edit up into what you see now.
Oh, I see. So how long? How many months went into the editing? I mean, it's long.
3 years
Of editing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, because we had to cut
so
many different versions.
Right. So that was.
We were editing and shooting at the same time, that's the amazing thing about making a film in your backyard is if you need a shot, you can go and get it.
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
And every day you're diving anyway, so you come back to the edit suite, and that world is alive in your imagination.
But it crystallized things for me. I mean, I know it's been a long process, but 3 years of just editing. When you spoke about passion and labor of love, that's a long edit. That's a long
crazy.
Edit. Yeah, that is crazy. But it worked. It worked. So I mean, really, well done. I mean, wow. I mean, I know the struggle of filmmaking. How many times did you want to give up on the? No, not. I mean, actually, you're going to give up. But how many times did you hit your head on the wall, going, "This is just too hard"?
For the first year and a half, it was kind of easy because we were naive. But once your film's been rejected a few times and you don't have any funding and you start running out of money. And you start running out of steam. That does make you want to give up. And then, when people's emotions become more and more frayed, I must say last year was very difficult for me. Not because, but because, Craig and I were both tired. And once you've sold to Netflix, it is the most incredible relief on one level, but unbelievable pressure on another. Yeah. And when you haven't done something like this before, and you don't have your confidence yet, it's very scary. And there were mornings where I just woke up and cried because I felt so intimidated by it. But that is the magic of having these incredibly experienced people coming on at different phases in the production to just stabilize things and give you confidence and support. And we couldn't have finished without that support. Yeah.
I mean, it's also, it's a great time for independent filmmakers around the world because of streaming platforms. We've got, all of us as artists have got new outlets for our work. And it's actually a great time in the world for artists. It doesn't mean it's easy. In fact, I always get friends who naively say, "Oh, your new film, are you going to get onto Netflix? Like you just phone them and they put it on." I mean, it's like, and I always hear that. It's like when we used to make films for cinema in South Africa, people say, "When's it coming out in America?" And I said, "It's not coming out in America." They go, "But why not?" Because unless you know America, do you know Mr. America, Mrs. America? Who do we phone? It doesn't work like that. And that's the same for every business. You can't take any product to America or another market. It doesn't. They're not waiting for our products, whether it's film or clothing.
Well, I think they actually are now. Which is exciting.
Now it's and you've helped pioneer that. So.
Well, thank you. I think people are starting to see the value in working with filmmakers that live in the place that they're telling stories from.
Absolutely.
I think they can see that there's something more authentic that comes through.
Yeah.
And that's very exciting for us as South Africans. But I also think it's kind of heartbreaking that there are so many incredible stories and so many incredible projects that don't get the airtime that they should.
Yeah.
We were lucky. I mean, I look back at this whole process and every piece of it feels like a complete miracle.
Yeah.
An utter miracle.
Yeah. But I like that word lucky because I use that a lot with the teams of people that we work with on our side. Because you do need luck. Even if you work the hardest and you have a great film, which is lucky in itself, because most films turn out mediocre. And I've been involved in mediocre films, and that's never the intention. It just happens that it comes out that way. But sometimes you're lucky and you do get a magical film. But it doesn't mean that the world's going to see it. It doesn't mean anything. No. It just means that you've got a beautiful film. Then you need another journey is how do you get it out there? So I mean, you guys, if you use the word lucky, because some people get defensive and say, there's no luck, but there's always luck involved. And I mean, you guys, hit the jackpot on every level. But I can tell you, we are very chuffed by what you've done, not just because the film is great and not only because it'll be good for South African tourism. And I mean, I don't have a passion for the Sea Change project. I just don't know enough about it, but hopefully it'll fuel all the changes you want to bring about and get support for your initiatives. So I'm sure it'll do all that, but I can tell you, you're also helping us. We've got another film this year, I mentioned earlier before we started, a documentary film, and we're going to be talking about the Octopus Teacher because we're hoping to be the second, documentary project onto Netflix. We're almost finished, and they've actually seen a bit of it and are excited. But you guys have actually paved the way for like the next documentary film. So we're hoping it'll be us. So thanks.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm very excited to hear that. And we had an amazing conversation a couple of days ago with some guys from Apteker, which is a big conservation production company in the States, and they did films like The Ivory Game and Sea of Shadows and Virunga, which are all absolutely fantastic films, beautifully made. I don't know if Virunga won an Oscar, but it was definitely nominated. But often these films don't generate the audiences that the streamers want or that the broadcasters want. And especially on Netflix, like the people I've worked with are incredibly kind of dedicated to nature and interested in it, but it's a big company in the end, and they need to generate a profit. So, but what these guys said to us is, your film has changed the way people look at natural history films, and people have engaged in it in a different way. So I think that we've kind of opened doors for more films about nature, which is something that I'm really proud of. Because we really, in the natural history world, you often end up preaching to the choir, but our planet is in a very, very dangerous place, and we need the word to be getting out to a much broader audience. We need people to be invested.
Well, I think your film will inspire many positive conversations that will support all the causes close to your heart. I mean, I'm not a big nature person, but it's hard to deny the importance of what you're saying, and everybody understands the planet needs as much love as possible, so I think again you're going to have a lot of joy and support from your work, because it does even for someone like me who's a nerdy city guy. I grew up in Cape Town, but I moved to Johannesburg later in my teens with my mom and brother, and I became a computer nerd. And but I mean, it's hard to ever argue against nature and the fact that we all need to be doing more to conserve the planet. And so I think your film will certainly be a catalyst for positive conversation. And I think whoever's listening, it gets everyone's everyone's thumbs up, because it really does talk to everyone's hearts, about a subject that no one ever thought. I mean, there's been many jokes online about, will you ever eat calamari again? And if I'm not mistaken, calamari is not octopus. but I did ask you that question. Would you ever eat grilled octopus in a restaurant, or never again?
So when I was a kid, calamari was my absolute favorite thing.
But calamari is not octopus, am I right? It's a different thing.
They might as well be the same.
Oh, okay,
they're cousins.
Okay.
Cousins.
Okay.
So they're cephalopods, and you have squid, cuttlefish,
See, we're learning.
octopus, and then the ancient species like the nautilus and the argonauts. So those all fit into the same family, and they are highly, highly intelligent. Evolved a long time ago, and they've just become masters of survival. They've been around an awful lot longer than human beings have. And I remember one day while I was making the film, I was sitting in a restaurant in Cape Town, gone out for dinner with Craig and Swati, and someone ordered calamari, and someone gave me a piece of it. And I was like chewing it, and I couldn't actually get it down. It was like a piece of rubber in my mouth. And that was, since then, I haven't been able to touch it. So
I'm not
it's
sure
a strange thing.
After seeing the film, I don't know if I can eat it. I haven't eaten in a long time, but I think it's not for me. And in terms of just your filmmaking journey going forward, like what are the next projects, or the next project? I mean, is there a project? Are you taking a bit of a break? I mean, I know this can be exhausting as well.
I am taking a break. It's not just the making of the film that takes an awful lot of energy, but there's a lot of responsibility once your film is successful, to do talks like this, to do interviews with journalists, to kind of keep Netflix happy, and that takes a lot of energy as well. So I'm feeling like I need a bit of time for that process to taper down, and just to get my energy levels back. But I've got some very interesting offers, and then obviously the Sea Change project is really where my heart lies.
Right.
And a whole lot of opportunities have opened up for us. Our organization has kind of exploded since the film launched.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so the film went out on a Monday night, and when we woke up on the Tuesday morning, I know Karina's on this call somewhere, we were getting an email every 3 seconds.
Wow.
And that carried on for weeks.
So it's wow. Is it a bad pun to say your film has like big tentacles, or?
Not a bad pun, except octopuses don't have tentacles. They only have arms.
So where do the tentacles come from?
So
where am I getting confused? I'm sure I'm not the only one with this misinformation. I mean,
so when you look at an octopus or a squid or a cuttlefish, those things that you see are always arms. The things that you see, like cephalopod means head, foot. So the little things that pass just below the animal's head are always arms. But with cuttlefish and maybe squid as well, but I'm not sure, there are these things that are almost like chameleons' tongues, that are like little elastic things that stay very curled up. And then when they're hunting and they need to attack something, this thing shoots out at lightning speed, like a chameleon's tongue, and grabs the prey. So those are attack tentacles. There are only 2 of them.
Oh, I see. Okay. But I'm not the only one who's got the wrong information, I take it.
Almost everyone.
Okay, so we learned something. Okay, well, I won't express my ignorance about.
No, don't worry about that.
My knowledge of the sea world is not big at all. But wow, okay. But I totally appreciate what you're saying about just catching your breath, because and I also know about we've had a couple of films that have traveled the world, and we've been on some international road shows, and it does wipe you out. It always sounds like fun, but it can also be quite exhausting. And then I'm pretty sure every filmmaker and their cousin is also calling you about their project. Can you read my script? Can you do this? Can you help me? I get that every time we have a film come out, I get my inbox flooded with people asking me, for help. And I try and be polite, and I'm quite a responsive guy, but it's difficult. And as you know, like you said
It's
earlier,
difficult to say no as well.
difficult to say no, and it's just a difficult process. There's not enough screen time for all these films, and sadly, most of those films are bad. They're just not great. So it's also people who make films think their film, and I've been in that boat where you make a fool of yourself and you say, wow, my film's great. Sorry, I don't actually talk like that. Our film is great, but and then people look at it like your mother again and goes, but that's really bad. And when she says she's not your mother, you really realize that she wasn't kidding, because I've been disowned a couple of times, because you can embarrass the family, you say, look at our film, and she's, that is just bad. So but am I right? But this is your first like feature film adventure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, you hit it out the ballpark. I mean, you and the team just did a hell of a.
Me and the team, yeah.
Yeah. No, I when I sent you all the questions, it was a lot. I never speak about because I know so well for 18 years, it's such a team effort. I mean, right now we're in a small team on this documentary, and it's a proper team effort. In fact,
you would never want
to
take a film on and call it my film.
Correct.
You will
Absolutely. Yeah.
You will drive yourself into the ground if you want to carry that all by yourself.
Absolutely.
It's too much.
That's exactly right. And I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, where do you, I mean, so besides the rest, what is the Octopus Journey? I mean, I take it Corona actually means that you don't do like flying around to film festivals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, actually, just as I'm thinking about it, you're probably more Zooming, and it's more online. Okay, of course, things have changed.
Yeah, so everything's on Zoom. What we are hoping for is that once the world opens up, and we're working on funding at the moment, but we want to do a bit of a world tour with the film and visit other places in the world that have kelp forests, and meet other organizations that are working on kelp forests, because they're disappearing. Not all of them, but this is the second most vulnerable ecosystem to climate change after shallow water corals. And certain kelp forests, Tasmania, for example, the whole thing disappeared in a couple of years. And the same thing's happening on the west coast of California. So we're really, everyone knows what coral bleaching is and how it works and why it's dangerous, but very few people are keyed into the fact that kelp forests cover 25% of our coastline.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, the global coastline is covered 25% by kelp forests, and they are all changing, and many of them are being wiped out. So it's very important, and they provide oxygen. They are really important for fisheries because they are essential nursery areas. They are biodiversity hotspots. So they're critical ecosystems.
Pippa, your passion for the kelp forests and your passion for filmmaking, I take it they're both, I mean, you're big drivers.
My passion for, yes, absolutely. My passion for nature. I mean,
for nature. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
But kelp forests are, that's what I know. That's where I've had the most powerful experiences of my life have been underwater in this kelp forest. So that's what carries you through the filmmaking process when you care about something that much.
Can we talk about the water? Because I did see a question pop up, and it was one of the questions that we discussed over the emails. I mean, I remember the ocean in Cape Town, the colder part, not the Indian part, the Atlantic Ocean. It can get cold. I kind of loved it, and I never. People used to look at me and say, "But you would swim in your shorts all day, no wetsuit,
It is pretty
and it's cold." But I grew up in Cape Town, and I took to the water. I don't know if I could do it now, but it might kill me at this age. But how? I mean, how did you? What's the word? Was there any danger with you, Steve, swimming in the? I guess you guys even spent nights in the ocean. I mean, I don't know. Did you guys sleep? Did you guys sleep over, or I mean, how intense and how was there any?
Quite a rare thing, Craig.
Yeah.
Craig wanted to figure out what octopuses were doing at night, and then we did need some shots as well. But it is a rare thing. The most dangerous thing in this kelp forest, sharks used to be a very scary. I mean, your chances of meeting one are very rare.
Yeah.
There are not so many around anymore because the orcas have pushed them out. But that's a very scary thing, just because Oh, psychologically, the thought of being eaten by a shark is a frightening thing for a human being.
Yeah.
The cold water can be very dangerous if you push yourself too quickly and your body doesn't have time to get used to it. You know, people have heart attacks. And then this is a dangerous ocean. It's stormy. There are rip currents everywhere. And a big part of your responsibility, if you're going to go in every day, is really getting to know what's safe and what's not. So that's what we had to do.
And in terms of like how long you can hold your breath for, I think one of the questions that popped up on the software here was, I mean, how long can you hold your breath for? I think it's saying everyone's curious to ask.
So on land, you can hold your breath for a lot longer than you can underwater. I know that Craig and one of my colleagues, Stein, can hold their breath for about 6.5 minutes on land.
Wow.
Yeah, but underwater, you know, the water's cold and you're using energy. So a long dive is like a 2-minute breath hold. That's
still a long time, eh?
Yeah, but if you hold your breath for 2 minutes, you'd be able to. I'd be very surprised if you couldn't.
Oh, no, but it sounds like a long time.
Sounds extreme, yeah. Wow. Yeah. And also remember, sometimes we would just take our cameras and leave them on the bottom. It's the good thing about working with an animal that lives on the seafloor. Yeah. And then you just leave it running and hope that you get what you need.
Wow. And what kind of cameras do you use to shoot? I've never done work in the water.
We had many different cameras on this film. Topside, we were often using FS7s because they're portable. All of the blue chip stuff that you see underwater was shot on a red by Roger Horrocks, our cinematographer. Yeah. And then when we go in every day, we take little small compact cameras because we want them with us all the time. You can't carry a giant red in a Nauticam housing down every day or when the sea's rough. So you really, the story of the best camera is the camera that you have with you. Couldn't be more true in the making of this film.
Wow. And I mean, there must be so much footage. It's unbelievable.
There is.
Wow. That's
it's going to be our life's work to make all that footage into stories.
Wow, that's incredible. Gee whiz. And I mean, what in terms of just let's end off this thing about the dangers. Did you have some close calls? I mean, were there some like moments where you thought, "Yo, that was close"?
Once you actually saw there was a shot of Craig with the drone swimming in very rough water. And he lost his fin that day and he had to swim back in with only one fin and he hurt his knee and couldn't walk for a few weeks. Sometimes you misjudge things. Well, we were filming some of the big shots of the crazy waves off Cape Point and we were standing on a rocky ledge and suddenly everything just started vibrating and Craig just said, "Run." And we literally ran across this ledge as fast as we could.
What was the vibrating?
Big waves. Huge set was coming.
Oh wow! Okay, that must be big waves to make vibrations.
It was scary. And Craig and my colleague Ross have seen white sharks a couple of times in the water. So they are. And also sometimes we swim far out.
Right.
And it can be rough. And if your gear works, if you panic in the ocean, it's very dangerous. So you've got to have you need to be able to trust yourself if you're going to swim a kilometer out to sea.
Did you lose any equipment at any point or?
I got robbed by baboons once, and they.
Oh no, I meant in the ocean, but.
Oh. I mean, we lose our small cameras all the time.
Oh, you do? Oh. Wow.
Yeah, all the time. I mean, they get flooded. They get lost. But the worst thing is if they get flooded.
And then the baboons when you get back up. So it's
No, this baboon went through my camera bag and through every single lens into a rock pool, and it was.
Oh, that's not so much fun.
But it wasn't great. It was an expensive mistake.
Wow. Okay. But just again on going back to filmmaking, is your passion for nature and filmmaking, does it have any potential for like non-fiction? I mean, or are you only into
Not at
real
this
things?
point.
Not at this. Okay. No, I'm just
Yeah.
curious as an artist and as a filmmaker, if it's something that is in your field of vision.
I don't know where I'll be in 10 years' time.
Right.
But at the moment, I really just want to develop the skills that I've been developing,
Right.
and build my confidence, and work with very good people who I can learn from. And yeah, so narrative filmmaking, a few people have spoken to me about it, but that's not something I'm ready to take on now.
Right. Okay. Well, I imagine you will have, when you're ready, a lot of opportunity just in the passions that you enjoy. So you probably don't need to look at narrative and fiction. For you probably never need to. I imagine the planet needs a lot of help. So I think you've got your work cut out for you. And if you can
I think so too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no more. I don't want to get into politics, but what's happened in the last few years with the state of the world, I think less people are in powerful positions seem to be caring. People need more folk like yourself to actually be documenting these important aspects of our life, and just to get the conversation started and to make people aware. I mean, your film, besides that it's entertaining and beautiful, it also got ignorant people like me in touch with, like, I'm from Cape Town, but you forget, you need reminders. And it made me not only nostalgic, but just wow, that is so amazing. And also it's again, just as someone who loves storytelling, it was unexpected. Like, it was a surprise, because stories out of South Africa are not about octopuses, or octopi. Is that the word? We're seeing stories about, culture and like we're making a film about violent crime, but a film about the sea forests was unexpected and really just so refreshing. So I think you've got enough opportunity to be telling stories about nature for the rest of time, because we need more and more attention.
Well, if we want to continue to live on Earth, and we want our children to have a vaguely livable environment, we need to tell stories about nature, and we need to change the way we relate to nature, and that's just a fact.
Absolutely.
That is actually the most terrifying fact that we are living with today. If we continue to ignore what we're doing to the planet. And there's a brilliant David Attenborough documentary on Netflix as well, which came out a few weeks after ours, and I'm so glad that it did, because it's called A Life on Our Planet. At the end of the film, he goes into where we're headed over the next 100 years, and it's very scary.
I can only imagine it. I mean,
it has to be taken seriously.
Like I said, unfortunately, like, our world leaders seem to have taken their eye off the ball, but hopefully films like yours can wake people up a bit.
I hope so.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's again, going back to what we were saying earlier, there is a responsibility to all of us, using filmmaking and storytelling. It's not just about, let's have some fun with cameras. I always tell people that's not it at all. We have a responsibility to get people talking about things that are important.
Exactly.
And then of course there's
after this year of one of the most unstable, scary years in modern human history. Certainly since the World Wars. I think people are more likely to listen, and I think people have reassessed their priorities, and they have more time because they're at home. And I've spoken to a lot of people who live in New York, and parts of the city are empty. People left and moved upstate and started growing vegetables, and they haven't moved back because
I mean, it's
things are changing.
I mean, I guess you guys had a bit of luck with the craziness, because people are at home watching Netflix more than ever. So the corona probably helped find a bigger audience. I mean, the film is fantastic, but it probably helped. It was also fueled by the fact that people are stuck at home and are watching more Netflix than ever before. So,
and they wanted a story of hope. And So we that's what I'm saying. I mean, everything in this film, it was released at the right time as well.
I think I guess that's part of the luck. I mean, you had the right product at the right time, and It really is just, and like I said earlier, it came by surprise, and I was amazed at how quickly just my network. I had WhatsApps and emails. You got to see this film, you know, and that's not because I'm into filmmaking. It was just fantastic, you know, like you got to see it. And I watched it, I think, about 2 days after I got the first message. It came up on my Netflix, you know, you get those emails every day. So it came up one of their promos, and then I saw it, I said, oh, I don't know that. And then I looked it up, South Africa, no ways, never heard of that. And then people started saying, Ronnie, you got to see it. And I was like delighted. So yeah, no, but anyway, I'm sure you know that people are delighted. Like you said, 3 mails a second. I mean, it's quite something. But there were so many questions we'd kind of
yeah, there are a few in the chat box as well.
Maybe want to, because I'm also looking at the clock here on the wall. We've probably got about 10 minutes.
Do you want to ask your last question, and then we'll move to the chat box?
Okay, well, Pippa, can I ask the most generic question that everyone as an entrepreneur asks? Like, what advice can you give to this? Like, it's a standard stock question. What advice can you give to someone who wants to make a film, especially like a film that's close to their hearts, like yours? Like it wasn't just, you didn't do this as a commercial opportunity. It is obviously what's very clear from this hour on the call is that this was something that, you know, there was a burning passion and it's close to your heart. But having said that, it's still a business venture. You know, it might not start out like that for you, but there was, you know, commercial objectives, and there was Netflix involved. And like you said, looking after Netflix is not an easy thing. What advice can you give to someone starting out, you know, as an entrepreneur filmmaker? What are the lessons that you learned?
Well, the first one is, do not take on a project unless you know that you'll have the energy to complete it. You have to absolutely love that film, and you also have to realize that it's going to be incredibly hard work. Filmmaking is an insane venture.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It will break you and it will burn you out.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
So don't go into it thinking it'll be it'll be easy.
Yeah.
And at the same time that you're dreaming up ideas, start building networks, because when you are a young filmmaker, no matter how talented and how good your instincts are, you will need help, and you'll need mentorship and guidance on your story, and you'll need people who can help you get eyes on it. And so you've got to find someone who can help you get to the right distributor, or someone who can help you get to the right broadcaster. Otherwise, it's really going to be impossibly hard. So yeah, I think there's quite a lot of, you need to believe in yourself against all odds, but you also need to have a lot of humility. And
absolutely.
Yeah, be aware that you won't be able to do this on yourself, and you need someone. You're going to need people with more experience than you to make it happen.
Yeah. No, I love what you're saying, and it actually sounds like things I say. So especially the part about like humility, I try and remind everyone all the time. Like it's a team effort, and absolutely you've got to stay humble. And I like what you said at the start. You've got to have that. You've got to believe you've got the energy, because it can break you, this stuff. And there are many, I cry quite a bit, Pippa. I have many mornings where I can't get out of bed and go, yes, we've worked so hard and it's not working, or we've hit a brick wall.
We should take each other's numbers, and you can cry on my shoulder anytime, because I know what it's like.
But yeah, this stuff can break you, and
I mean, Oliver Stone, I don't know, I just read his autobiography. He wrote 2 screenplays a year, every year for 17 years before he made Platoon and became really successful. 17 years of failure, and that's one of the most, legendary.
But I got drunk with Oliver Stone at dinner in the Berlin Film Festival. Yeah, it was an odd story. We had a film there that I was helping on called Jerusalem, and it premiered at Berlin. Ralph and Tentacles, my friends, made the film, and I helped a bit. And I was having dinner at, it's called Grill Europe, and he came to sit next to me. It was the bizarre thing. I was with a bunch of girls, and he was more interested in the girls than all the celebrities in the restaurant.
It doesn't surprise me after reading.
And he said to me, "What have you got that I don't have?" And I looked up. I said, "Shit, it's Oliver Stone. What are you talking about?" And then he took over the dinner. It was like me and a bunch of girls. They were friends of ours that took me for dinner, and they, so I could tell you offline some crazy. They're not very pretty, the stories, but they're very funny. Yeah.
No, he's wild, but he's disciplined.
Very wild.
That's what he said. He said, no matter what happened, no matter how much he drank or how much cocaine he snorted, he woke up the next morning, he sat down, and he wrote 6 days a week, every year for 17 years.
Sounds like the guy who hijacked my dinner. It was quite surreal, but it it gets a bit dark. I'll talk about it offline. But Lisa, do you want to jump into the questions, because there were a few I see popped up?
I do. My home phone's ringing.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay.
It was bad timing.
Did you order a pizza?
Let me just quickly. No. Too early for that.
Okay.
Some calamari steak. There's a question to Pippa around speaking to the music of the movie.
Yes,
what was the process? Yeah, he wants to know, what was the process like getting the film scored?
Okay, this is a really cool question. So there's a composer who Craig's worked with for a very long time. His name is Kevin Smits. And he's been scoring films for Craig since he was about 21 years old. Incredibly humble, gentle, talented guy. He's the same age as me, so him and I had a really cool relationship because we both felt out of our depth a lot of the time. So we approached Kevin right in the beginning, and he wrote a few pieces for us, and then we just had no funding for years. So we used what he'd done, and then we had a truly incredible temp score. So that's an important thing in any film that you do, is to just don't worry about copyright. Find pieces of music that work and find them everywhere you can, from other film scores, commercial songs, electronic music. Get the feeling of your film right. And then you take that to your poor composer who now has to match the music that you've got from these famous composers all over the world. I mean, we had tracks from Nils Frahm and Hans Zimmer, very well established composers, and poor Kevin nearly had a heart attack, literally. Originally he had 6 weeks to complete the score. In the end, I think it took him about 3 months. And it was huge pressure. He'd never delivered anything to Netflix either. So he and I think, had a lot of mornings where we woke up and had panic attacks and cried. And there were days where I'd kind of drive to his office and sit in my car, and sometimes I did burst into tears, and then I'd have to like pull myself together and walk in and encourage him. And that was where Jinx Godfrey was also incredible, because she worked with him. So Kevin has done phenomenally well. I mean, he really played out of his boots to get the score to what he did. And he's not just a composer, so he doesn't just create music, he's also incredible at creating soundscapes. And that's quite a specialized thing that he's learned through doing so many films for Craig. So a soundscape is not just built on melodies and musical notes. He took kelp forest sounds that had been recorded by Craig and his son, like organic sounds, and he bent them and warped them and created music from them. And that, I think, is one of the special things about our soundtrack, is the music itself is made by the kelp forest. And especially if you listen to the music in the second attack, for example, there's hardly any melody in that whole piece. It's all just this atmospheric soundscape that Kevin created.
Wow. I think we've got time for 2 more questions. One question is, how were you funded?
So as I said, I had a little bit of a stipend, which I'm incredibly grateful for, from the Sea Change project, which they then got back once we'd sold the fund, but we had no funding. Craig self-funded this film. Craig and his brother at Damon, who own Foster Brothers Films, which is a company that they've built over 20 years. Craig just went into this with complete faith, and he funded it for as long as he could. And literally, as we were down to, the very last little bit of money that we had, the Netflix deal came through. And we also got some funding
timing.
from our distributors, which was off the fence. They came in and they helped us bring on James Reed, for example. But certainly for the first year and a bit, we had no funding.
And you made it work. It's unbelievable, unbelievable. There's a question here from Ken. Last question. Pippa, your views on the creepy parody?
I think it's great. That came in at a really good time for us because everyone had taken the film so seriously, which was amazing. I mean, people have been so touched by it, but actually you can feel quite pressured by all of that sincerity. So it was nice to have a lighter take. And I know Craig watched that and was almost crying. He was laughing so much. So yeah, and they did it beautifully. You know, they spent a lot of time and energy matching the cinematography style, matching the scene. So it was cool.
That was a good answer. I like that.
There are so many beautiful comments congratulating you and sharing how it's been an inspiring conversation. So I will definitely share those with you later so that you can read through them. But just to end off,
please, just to say, Karina's also put a comment on the chat there too with the link.
Sorry.
The music is available on Apple Music and Spotify. So if anyone's interested, the link is there in the chat box.
Okay, I can also share that with everybody.
Thanks,
Perfect.
Lisa.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks.
And if you guys want to read some more about the Sea Change project and about the work that we're doing and their incredible insights into the kelp forest, which is really all of our backyard, then please have a look at seachangeproject.com and follow us on social media.
Karina, maybe you can just pop the links into the chat box and then everyone can view those. But just to end off, Pippa and Ronnie, thank you. What an incredible conversation. Pippa, you are an inspiration. When Brenna and I met you, I think about a year or so ago, we just fell in love with your energy, your disposition, and this incredible work that you were engaging on. And we were so excited when the project launched and that you received overnight success, which is just so well deserved considering the work, the effort, and really the purpose around what you guys have achieved. So thank you so much for sharing this amazing story with us and educating us at the same time.
Well, thanks.
Ronnie,
and thanks for all your support the whole way through.
No, it's absolute pleasure. It's wonderful having you part of ORT and obviously part of our network. And Ronnie, thank you so much for just
it's a great thank you to all of you. Pippa's been an inspiration, and Pippa, you helped me. I've got a big challenge. I've got a small team with another Craig and Janine, Joel, Tamsin, Kegi. A shout out to them, but I can too. They're all listening, and they'll watch it on YouTube. But you've been a great inspiration because we're also struggling at the moment. We've got something good, but your words have been very fortifying, and and you've reminded me of why we do what we do.
So, well, thanks, Ronnie, and it would be great to have a talk one time sometime.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. I'll email you after this anyway. But
cool.
It's cool.
Yeah.
So, Ronnie,
thank
you. Thanks for bringing your energy into the conversation and conducting this amazing interview. And to everyone else, thank you for joining us today. And just keep safe. And we look forward to seeing you at the next one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Ron.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye-bye,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.